Good day from Las Vegas. Welcome to the Church of the Holy Point Spread. This is gamblersworld.net, and that's Scott Pritchard, my special guest today. I am Chip Chirimbus. We are the Vegas Legends Winner's Circle, brought to you by gamblersworld.net. Like I said, we're the finest handicappers in the country, are putting their games out on a daily basis and can make you a winner. And I have with me for our college show, the college football playoffs. This is a big deal right here. As Penn State on Thursday night is going to be playing Notre Dame. Scott, Penn State has two losses. They lost to Oregon and they lost to Ohio State. Not bad company. Notre Dame, of course, is a field goal away from being undefeated. Lost to Northern Illinois. This game has virtually a pick 'em. It's fluctuated a little bit. Notre Dame -1, 1.5. How do you see this game? I mean, they said Penn State had the easiest route to the final game, and it looks like beating Boise and SMU has them in line if they can handle the Fighting Irish.
I agree with that assessment as far as having the easiest path. That does
Right.
not mean that they're going to get there. I think Ohio State probably will be considered the odds-on favorite to win it all, especially the way that they've looked in the
Yeah.
playoffs, beating a very good Oregon team. You and I together like the over Red Rover, winner, winner, steak and lobster dinner in that game. But I want to stay on point to your point, Chip, regarding the Penn State Notre Dame game. You're only as good as your competition. I understand Notre Dame is getting a lot of respect. The fact that they are a 1-point favorite, the total on this game is 45.5. You had mentioned that Penn State, they've lost only 2 games. There's no shame there because they lost to Ohio State and they lost to Oregon. But to my point, they both were one possession games. So to me, both games were a coin toss, and that's the level of competition that we're talking about. When you look at the 2 losses for Penn State compared to Notre Dame losing to the Huskies of DeKalb, Illinois, NIU, Northern Illinois University, there's a big difference there. So it's interesting to me that Notre Dame is favored. It goes back to people generally only remember what happened most recently. Now, the fact that Penn State has won and won convincingly in the playoffs against SMU and Boise State. I like Penn State, the fact that they've had not 1 but 2 extra days of rest to prepare. That's critically important. You know me, Chip. I love teams that play defense, especially
Yes.
this time of year. Penn State, they're a top 5 defense, and I can prove it. You know, no one cares what happened in September, but I'm talking most recently. They gave up only 58 yards rushing to SMU, and they held the Heisman Trophy runner-up from Boise State to 3.5 yards per carry. I like their quarterback. No INTs in 6 of the last 7 games, and I love their stud horse tight end, the 6'6", Tyler Warren. Now you look at Notre Dame. This is an interesting matchup because Notre Dame, they like to run the ball, but do you really think they're going to be able to have a sustainable running game against that defensive front of Penn State? So if they are put in a position, Chip, to where they have to pass, numbers don't lie. People lie, numbers don't. The fact is, Notre Dame passing weak, 122nd in the nation. Are you kidding me? So when I look at this and I look at Notre Dame, let us not forget, they won their playoff game, most recently, but they only had 6 points in 59 minutes. And then they scored 17 points in 54 seconds. So my play on this game, under the 45.5, see the cashier.
I can see that, Scott. Thank you very much. Some really pretty good stuff you had there in your content. Notre Dame, you said defense. Number 2, allowing only 13.6 points a game. Offensively, they're scoring 37.5 points. So there's a big discrepancy. They're only allowing 295 yards a game, Sean. And that, excuse me, I had to get it in there at least once, Scott. They're allowing 295 yards a game, and anything under 300 is great. Penn State's offense is a little bit better, I think, than people are giving them credit for, averaging 436 yards and almost 34 points a game. This is a tough one. Like you said, I think the under may be the way to go. It just seems that way. Notre Dame comes in covering 10 straight games, not just winning, covering 10 straight games. And I'll tell you, Scott, that's quite a feat in itself. And they come up here only one. My ex-partner out of New York, seems to think that he just doesn't want to play against the Irish. He's had so much luck with them this year, and they've carried him, made him so much money. He just doesn't want to go against them. Yet I know he believes that Penn State is ultimately the winner here. And it's a tough one. It's a tough game to call. It really is. And the surprising thing, I think, Scott, is that Notre Dame or Penn State are going to be in the championship game, and I don't think we anticipated either of them being there when this whole thing started. So the playoffs this year, where they had so many seeded teams that were double-digit underdogs, I think, Scott, they're going to have to revamp how they actually seed these teams, because the difference in dichotomy was huge there in some of these teams. For Boise to get a bye, and for Arizona State, and Arizona State's a lot better than people had given them credit for, and a lot better than people are even acknowledging right now. It's a tough ball game here. We're going to have to see what happens. Penn State and Notre Dame Thursday night, and that's going to be a college game of the year for me. 6-0 in the last 6. Now, here's the one that everyone thinks the favorite here is just going to walk on over everyone else in this championship series, and that's Ohio State. Opened 6.5, now down to 5.5 in places, and 6. Although there seems to be a huge sentiment on Ohio State after the 2 performances they had, scoring 41 and 42 points in their 2 games. Now the line's lowering. Why is the line coming down here, Scott, if there's so much interest in Ohio State in this contest?
Well, I think because, to my earlier point, my friend, people generally remember what happened most recently. And Ohio State, they can run, they can pass, they're world beaters. They proved it in the Rose Bowl in Pasadena when they took it to a very good Oregon Duck team, a revenge contest. You and I talked about that. We were on the winning side. We were on the winning total. But the fact is, the thing that has impressed me with Ohio State is not only have they won in the playoffs, but they've won convincingly by an average of 23 points per game against top-tier competition. Wide receiver Smith, this guy is unbelievably good. In his most recent game, you and I saw this against Oregon, 7 catches, 187 yards. Are you kidding me? And the other thing with Ohio State, I'm impressed with the fact that when I was on this show and I gave out Michigan plus 20, not thinking that Michigan would win the game straight up, I alluded to the fact that they were banged up on the offensive line, and that would certainly favor Michigan. But the fact is, the Buckeyes have overcome losing their left tackle, losing their center because of injuries, and yet they played like a house on fire. Probably bad timing for that analogy, so I'll take that back. But the fact is, they played like world beaters against Oregon. And so I think the betting public and even some sharps probably are guilty of overreacting based on the eye test. I don't trust my eyes. Right. I don't trust my heart. My mind rarely gets me into trouble, but in relationships, my heart has betrayed me many times. Don't ask me how I know. So I go with logic, I go with value, I go with numbers. And I think the fact that Ohio State opened high, I think the sharps are coming around now, like myself. I think the value is with Texas because, again, I love teams that play great defense, especially this time of year. Texas, great defense. Erratic on offense. So they've had some challenges, and against Arizona State most recently, you and I talked about we liked Arizona State plus the points. Arizona State finished the year now 12-2, and for all intent and purpose, Chip, Arizona State should have won that game, and shoulda, woulda, coulda. Texas got off to a great start, 14-3, but Arizona State, they should have won it in regulation had they. I cannot believe the non-call on the targeting, which was blatant. They probably would have won it in regulation, but again, bottom line is no excuses. Texas found a way to win, even though they didn't play one of their absolute best games. I like Texas plus the points, plus 6. Points mean more than opinions. Ohio State, yes, I respect the Buckeyes. They are the odds-on favorite to win the national championship, but this is a 3-hour contract, nothing more, nothing less. Ohio State can win by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points, and they will be ecstatic. But if you take Ohio State minus the points, you lose, whereas Texas could pull off a mild upset. And I look for a close game. I like the Longhorns.
Okay, I like it. Very good. Thank you for that opinion. And everyone out there, this is coming from Scott Pritchard. And Scott, before I give my opinion, by the way, Texas does have someone to counter with the Ohio State receiver, a guy by the name of Flowers. And I tell you, he's going to be as good as anybody that's out there. Defense, you mentioned defense, and Ohio State and Texas play it. Texas has been predominantly one of the top defenses the entire year, only allowing 277 yards a game. And Scott, that's third in the nation, but Ohio State's first, allowing 244 yards a game. That's outrageous. I mean, 300 is great. I mean, they're only allowing 12 points a game, which is number one in the nation. And offensively, they're averaging 36. Ohio State seems to have the numbers, but you said it. Numbers never lie, but they can be very deceiving. And this happens very often. You know, you see these stats, and sometimes you see it in baseball where guys have compiled outrageous stats with RBIs, and when the season's over, when it didn't mean anything. And these two teams play defense, and these two teams, I see it difficult for it to be a high-scoring game at this time right now. Team total for Ohio State in this one, Scott, is 30.5, and team total for Texas is 23.5. It's as if they're really not giving Texas's offense as much respect as they probably should.
I like what you say because it's just like in the Super Bowl, oftentimes it's an underplay because teams, when the stakes are elevated, teams do not want to get beat in the first quarter, knowing that games are not won in the first quarter, but they can be lost if you have the Dan Gamble mentality of being a gunslinger or a riverboat gambler. But generally speaking, teams will relatively feel each other out, play it close to the vest, not do anything to self-sabotage their chances. So to your point on the under on the team totals, I certainly understand and respect where you're coming from.
Well, you know, this has been an incredible playoff series. It's unique to the first time we're having it here. And I had said when this whole thing started after the Michigan game that if Ohio State doesn't get to the final, not necessarily win the final, but if they didn't get to the final, that days were numbered. And they've been so dominant. So they're the odds-on favorite here. And I think for the most part, this is going to be Joes versus pros, Scott, where the pros are going to be on the dog, and the average Joe is going to be on the favorite, which is Ohio State. And how can you blame them? They've been so dominant, and they just look like the heads and shoulders above everyone else. And you know, people are thinking they're better than even money right now. They're the favorite to win it all. So this is gamblersworld.net. Don't hesitate to give us a like. I'm here with Sean Pritchard, excuse me. I am here with Scott Pritchard. I'm sorry. I just, you know, we do so much work with Sean. I've been doing this with him for so long. And Sean has a show, a Winner's Circle show on a daily basis right here at gamblersworld.net. And you can catch all the free winners from, well, we've got Mark Lawrence, we've got Jim Feist, we have Scott Pritchard, we have myself, Matt Fargo. There are a plethora of champions located on this website. We have more Las Vegas handicapping champions at gamblersworld.net than anybody else out there. There is no site that can compare to our Baker's dozen. Now, I got to ask you, my friend, how do you see it happening this week? I mean, who do you think is going to win it all?
As far as the college or the NFL?
Yeah, as far as the college goes right now.
Well, you know, I like Texas plus the points, but again, I bet numbers, I bet value. It's a 3-hour contract. It's one game at a time. I mean, you have to lean on the Buckeyes of Ohio State. So I think and for good reason, there are so many different ways this team can beat you. They're well coached. They can run, they can pass, they play great sound defense. But if you, at the same time, when I look at this one game situation, it's a football game. Anything can happen. Texas could win the game straight up. My money is on Texas plus the 6, but I respect you. I respect the question. If you're going to ask me, hey, who's going to win it all? The Buckeyes of Ohio State.
All right, now, so you would not consider playing Texas on the money line at all? I
No,
know you have them plus the points. I was just wondering because you do like Ohio State to go all the way, and yet
I
you
do.
like Texas here. So, would you think they'd be worth a shot on the money line?
Absolutely. It's really about what money line can you get. I'm
Yeah.
big on EV, expected value. I like beating the closing number, and I'll reverse that as an example because a lot of times if you look at Ohio State, if you like Ohio State to win the title, you might like Ohio State on the money line. Find the
Right.
cheapest money line that you can do, and you can look for a synthetic middle. Synthetic meaning you don't want to go to the same sports book and take Texas plus 6.5 and then come back at the same place and take Ohio State on the money line. It's a great way to get tossed. Don't ask me how I know. It's a great way to get harassed. Don't ask me how I know. So, but yeah, as far as Texas goes on the money line, it really depends. It always depends on the no vig line and the
Right.
take back on the plus on the money line. Is it beating the no vig line? That would warrant a bet. But generally speaking, no. I'm just taking the
Okay.
points and I'm going to see the cashier.
Right. I'm like you. I try not to get too far in front or ahead of myself because, but let's close with, before we close. And by the way, don't forget to give us a like. We will be doing college basketball starting Fridays next week. And by the way, you are invited, Scott, to do our Friday college basketball show. Now I want to get personal here. How have you fared in the contest? We know you're among the leaders, and I want to know if you're ready to cash in. The NFL contest, I don't know if it's still continuing or how did it end up?
It's over, it's done, and the results are in. The Circa Invitational last year, field of 16 of the world's best going head to head. I finished third and a half game out of second to Tony the Great Gordon. This year, I made the Elite Eight. They expanded the field to 25 of the world's best. Our buddy, Paul Bovey, also made the Elite Eight because he's a 5-star, rock star, superstar, handicapper, pro better as well. I finished a half game out of third place. Are you kidding me? Golden Nugget contest. Last year I took sixth. This year I took third, a half game out of second, and that's a
Wow.
difference of $15,000.
Wow.
Amazing to me, Chip. I love you, and I love the fact that you brought this up, even though I'm a little bit annoyed. I choose to be humble. I choose to be grateful, but I had my eyes set on that second place. Ultimately, I took third by a half game. But to me, 126 games, 7 games versus the number, no totals. I love totals, but this is all point spread related in the Golden Nugget contest. But to handicap 126 games and it comes down to a half game difference, and it cost me $15,000. But again, they give cash back to the top 20, so I'm going to see the cashier.
Your consistency and your expertise, that's a story in itself. I mean, very rarely do people come back like you have with year after year with great records. And by the way, I've broke into the win column myself as well. I don't know if you're aware, Scott, that I won the South Point Bowl contest, the jackpot, um, 14-1 during the bowl. So we've got another banner hanging on the website, another championship, which has been handed to one of our handicappers. And this time it happened to be me. And Sean, I didn't quite cash in as much money as you did, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. And plus the fact, just winning and have everyone acknowledge that you won is it's a prideful thing. I mean, it really helps your self-esteem for sure. But anyway, here we are. We're finishing the college football playoffs right here. This is my man, Scott Pritchard. You've seen him right each and every week with us, giving you vital information. He gave you a big time game on Texas this week. Log on, follow the by links, give us a like, and don't forget, this is how we make our living. We're not out here just a bunch of talking heads like on any other show. We back our opinions with our cash. So log on, follow the by links, become a gamblersworld.net winner. From Scott Pritchard and Chip Chirimbus. So with your head not over it, good luck, everyone, and enjoy this weekend. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks again, Chip. See you next time.